Yeah, let's go. So, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today I am here with Marcel Kalinovic, Boss Blunt, CEO, and the Butcher of Wall Street, man. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Josh. It's a pleasure.
No problem.
Appreciate being here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here in my living room, my new flies, and the most bare background I've ever recorded in front of, but we'll get there. Something nice behind it at some point, I'm sure. So,
Put up one of the fake backgrounds behind you.
yeah, I mean, they always distract me. I feel like they look weird.
They do kind of look weird, yeah.
It's like,
I don't prefer to use them personally either, but for some people it works, you know.
well,
You,
yeah. I mean,
you got your Johnny Bravo with fire explosions in the background everywhere and guys like that, you know.
Oh yeah, well, in my old room, I used to have a massive poster of Jimi Hendrix. So I mean, it's kind of a step down, no matter what I go for
Yeah.
at this point, you know. But anyway, so first thing I want to ask is like, where did you first come across GameStop slash AMC? Just like the meme stocks, for lack of a better term, because like I'm writing a book. I don't know if you know, I'm writing a book about GameStop and the GameStop story, and I've having delayed the last 3 months of writing because I'm sort of waiting for things to settle down. I'm now in a point where I'm like, right, okay, Josh, enough procrastinating. So where did you first hear about this absolutely wild story, and what made you pay attention?
I think it was actually in January when GameStop started moving up really quickly, you know, not long after the Capitol building issues. So it was pretty clear that something insane was going on. And for a little bit, I wasn't sure what to think. You know, I kind of had to look into it a little bit more. But I had recently purchased a home, so I was out of the market. When I was getting back into it immediately after the January GameStop and AMC, you know, runs, I was playing in crypto and things like that. And one of my friends told me, you know, hey, you need to look into, you know, AMC and GameStop a little bit more because this is what's going on, and kind of explain a little bit of the basics to me. And then I just started doing a little bit of my own due diligence, and I just kind of fell into a rabbit hole that made me realize that the entire financial system's out of control, sadly. It was a lot of things that I already knew as far as the market manipulation, but it was definitely a whole new level of proof of the manipulation that's occurring in the markets through a variety of ways, you know, mainly the synthetic shares, naked shorts, and dilution that occurs on the stock market, you know, every single day.
Hmm. So, like, of all of the things that, because I talk about this a lot with my best friend, actually. So, all of the things that, of all of the sort of like pieces of this puzzle, what makes you like most sure that we've like stumbled on the greatest hedge against the financial crash that ever existed? Like, what makes you the most confident about it?
I wouldn't say there's a one thing specifically that makes me the most confident. I think it's most definitely everything combined. The combination of issues that have occurred on the financial markets since, you know, before 2008 ever happened, and the fact that the only reason our markets are where they currently stand is because of the quantitative easing and the artificial printing of money, the hyperinflation that's been created by the Federal Reserve in order for them to continue to print more and more money and further bail themselves out in this, you know, infinite money glitch. And we've reached kind of the point of no return. And the same thing, you know, bodes for the stock market and the Federal Reserve's printing of the US dollar when there's nothing left to support it and there's no more easing that can happen. You know, even after they've already said they've stopped easing, they continue to push. For example, last month there was a $130 billion worth of purchases of assets for the Federal Reserve. So it's not so much a singular issue, more so a conglomeration of problems in monetary policy and financial markets and the stock market specifically, as well as the amount of manipulation that is allowed to occur and all of the self-reporting that is allowed to occur on heavily shorted stocks.
So, what do you think actually, before we go there, is there anything on the total opposite side of that question that makes you doubt the thesis? Like basically that doubt that these companies are incredibly, incredibly heavily shorted due to all the reasons you've said. synthetic shares, naked short selling, share rehypothecation, the failure to deliver cycle, like all of these things that sort of add up to this theory that there's maybe like 2, 3, 4 times as many shares, if not more, of GameStop and AMC in circulation. Like, is there anything that sort of makes you doubt that that's the case?
I don't have any doubts. There's never been a situation. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I've been investing in the markets for 18 years or so now, and there's never been a situation in which I felt more comfortable with my money than there currently is with AMC and GameStop, for example. And some people kind of got into it expecting it to be a very easy, fast process. But anything in the stock market that's worth doing, or in life that's worth doing, is worth taking the time to do properly, and it's often going to take longer than expected. So I personally don't have any doubts. It's not an if, but a when for me, and that's it.
Well, I'm not going to argue with that kind of optimism. I love it. I'm hoping you're right. I really am.
Is there levels of manipulation and things in this, on the back end that could go wrong, and things like, for example, brokers going position close only in January of 2021? Yeah, absolutely. What would happen if that were to happen again? I could see millions and millions of people doing things that the government would be very unhappy with. So I am not sure if that could happen again. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, I hope you're right. I mean, the class action lawsuits alone would just be...
For example, look at London Metals Exchange, LME. They reversed 5,600 nickel trades. Nickel traded between $50,000 and $100,000 a ton for a brief time period, and London Metals Exchange reversed only 5,600 trades, and that was equivalent to around $6 billion worth of equity that was stolen from those traders that had made those successful trades and given back because they were reversed to the ones that lost that money. All because a rich Asian guy that had connections with the Hong Kong markets, who owned London Metals Exchange, got margin called by JP Morgan and couldn't meet the margin call to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. So JP Morgan, London Metals Exchange, all colluded in order to reverse those trades to prevent that margin call. Now, what do you got? You got London Metals Exchange shutting down silver and gold futures trading because there's absolutely no fucking open interest. Pardon my language, but nobody wants that. Nobody wants to trade on that trash. What do you think would happen in the New York Stock Exchange if 5, 6, 7 million people had trades that were reversed on AMC and GameStop? I wouldn't be surprised to see if, the pitchforks came out and the financial markets, lost generations of investors. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. But it's definitely a sticky situation for banks and market makers to cause any further issues than they already have. At this point, in my opinion, the only way out for them is a full reset. And in order for that to happen, they've got to, have companies like Melvin, go out of business and get liquidated and such in order to close out their short positions on AMC and GameStop and 100 other meme stocks.
I'm just looking at, I've just pulled the article up for people who are watching here about this. And I didn't even know this had happened. You would have thought this would have been like absolutely insane if like some massive like market had decided to just reverse and cancel orders.
Mainstream media doesn't cover it because they don't want the average investor to know about it. We've been shouting it for the rooftops since it happened. And now the majority of investors have just said, screw that. Like I have no interest in going to try to trade, on this market with LME if they're just going to reverse my trades if I make money. So they're going to be shutting down soon, in my opinion. And as a matter of fact, another thing that a lot of people don't know is that Crypto.com also discussed reversing trades of Luna, I believe. And it ended up after about 24-hour time period, they came out and said that they're not going to reverse those trades after all. I think, a lot of people were tweeting that, they could see a similar situation going on for crypto.com with all of their, retail investors fleeing, and them having to, also shut down due to that fact, kind of like at London Metals Exchange. So I don't think that it would be good for any of the banks or market makers to do it. Is it possible? I guess anything is really possible, right?
Yeah. So someone here is claiming that the a technical glitch in their mobile app was allowing people to escape. Maybe this is even the same thing, but apparently it was showing like prices way above where it should have. People were closing out trades at like far higher prices, and then they talked about then they did reverse all of those trades based on their own fucking based on their own mistake. It's crazy the shit that's going down at the minute, man. Like,
Yeah.
do you ever just look at the news and just go, what the fuck is going on out there? Like,
And on the news, you only really see what they want you to see. So you've got to take it with a grain of salt and look a little bit deeper for sure. And that's the interesting thing, when you see, and speaking of the news, when you've got guys like Ken Griffin coming out on Bloomberg and basically saying that retail investors are at fault for Melvin Capital losing billions and billions of dollars worth of teachers' pensions funds on AMC and GameStop bets. It's kind of goes to show that retail investors are really making a big impact. And that's the exact same thing that was happening with Griffin and the mainstream media, bashing on retail investors and calling them dumb money in January and June of the last two run-ups, which occurred, in my opinion, due to executive orders from Presidents Trump and Biden. And that same executive order is coming into play here on June 3rd of 2022. That is probably, in my humble opinion, going to cause very similar reverberations throughout the market as it did during the January and June run-ups of AMC and GameStop and 100 other meme stocks.
Okay, you're going to have to go, like, which executive orders do you mean here, man? Because this is not something I've heard of. And I've been deep in this stuff.
Executive Order 13959, for example. I could pull it up on my screen if you'd like. But that's from President Donald Trump. And it basically states that Chinese military company collateral, around 35 companies, would become worthless on January 28th, 2021. And we all know what happened with GameStop and AMC on January 28th, 2021. They were up 3,000% year to date at that moment. Then they were extended through May 27th. This Executive Order 13959 from Donald Trump was extended in January by President Biden through May 27th, 2021. And on May 27th, 2021 was the day that AMC moved up, I believe, from $12 to $18. And this continued through June 2nd. On June 2nd, 2021, AMC ran up to $77 and change. That was its all-time high. Because on June 3rd, while the market was closed, Biden issued an executive order 14032, I believe. I'll pull that up. And basically that was just an amendment that added more companies and extended the executive order 13959 by a period of 1 year. So on June 3rd, those guys got a massive bailout. And I actually do have it right here, so I'll pull it up so I give you accurate information. Anybody that wants to can go look it up on their own as well. That executive order was 13959 originally on January 27th. I'm sorry, January 28th and May 27th. And then on June 3rd, 2021, there was Executive Order 14032 addressing the threat from securities investments that finance certain companies of the People's Republic of China. And what that does was it gave market makers and banks and hedge funds this collateral back. These 35 Chinese stocks from the emerging markets, they were now valid collateral on the stock market again. So that lasted a period of 1 year, and it goes into effect again June 3rd, 2022 of this year.
What?
That means that
June 3rd.
Yeah, June 3rd. Also, in addition, I forgot to mention that on February 16th of this year, 2022, the U.S. Treasury made an amendment to this order and added another 35 more companies. So now there's about 70 to 75 Chinese companies that are going to be completely worthless collateral.
Right.
On June 3rd, 2022. And usually that means margin calls, because that's what it meant the last two times, January 28th and May 27th. It's rumored and alleged, actually, through an article that was posted on January 28th of 2021 on mainstream media, that somebody from the White House actually reached out to Virtue Financial, the market maker, and told them to basically halt trades and go position close only on AMC and GameStop. That's the same day of the executive order that basically, destroyed this military collateral. The same thing goes with, May 27th. And again, basically there's a 5-day time period or 6 days from May 27th through June 3rd in which the stocks continued to trade and trend higher because this executive order made that collateral useless. So that meant that they were getting margin called and delta hedging every single day. So closing out other assets, FangMat stocks, for example, and putting that in crypto and putting that money into, AMC and GameStop, and delta hedging for out of the money call options. And this caused a gamma ramp and fear of missing out from retail and further increasing of the stock. But the reason that it stopped, and some people want to blame, some people have a lot of different blames, but in my opinion, the real reason that the stocks stopped going up and these guys got back their shit collateral was because Executive Order 14032 on June 3rd, 2021, gave them another 365 days to have this collateral back before it comes back into effect and removes all of those companies again. And like I said, now there's over 75 companies on this list. And it's, I think we're going to have a repeat of January and June, except this time because China's invading Taiwan practically. They're not going to back it up. They're not going to continue to push it back. There's no fucking way, in my opinion, with China having leaked audio of actual officials discussing attacking Taiwan and United States forces in the region in the South China Sea. There's no way that they're going to extend this executive order, because it would be like Biden rolling out a red carpet for China to invade Taiwan if this executive order were to be extended.
I didn't know that there was leaked audio of Chinese officials saying they were going to invade Taiwan. I'm just fucking checking this out here right now, man. You're fucking. Yes, this is unbelievable education I'm getting here.
That's good, guys. I'm glad to hear that. But I try to keep up on all of this stuff so that, because I want to know what's going on next with my investments, man. And I'm sure you do as well. Everybody does.
Apparently not. You're schooling me here. This is brilliant.
That's what I'm here for, my friend. That's why they called me the Butcher of Wall Street.
So here it is.
Let's go to fucking work.
Dindia.com. Chinese plans to invade Taiwan.
Yes, sir. It was leaked just a few days ago. There's dozens and dozens of Chinese officials on site. And now, as of about 2 days ago, China is forcing all of their officials to divest themselves of outside property and equities. So Chinese oligarchs cannot be sanctioned in the way that Russians were. And Russians lost over $300 billion to these sanctions. And China is not about to have the same. So President Xi Jinping has been actively watching the situation and has made it illegal for any Chinese official, their spouse, their family, their kids to own equities outside of the United States, so that they can't be sanctioned when they invade Taiwan.
What? Mm-hmm. So they're not allowed to?
Oh, they have to sell it off. They all have to sell it off right now. There's no choice.
Wait, hang on. So did you mean that they can't own equity outside of China, not outside of the United States?
Right. No, not outside of China, because they don't want it to get taken, in the European markets and the American markets, etc. So all those Chinese rich people that are officials or brothers or sisters or cousins or wives, maybe not cousins, but wives and sons and daughters of officials are not able to continue to hold American stock. So they're all going to sell off all their stock and treasury bonds and anything else that they might have, real estate properties, yachts, anything they can't bring to China is going to get sold off with a quickness, I might add. And they're not going to get sanctioned and lose billions and billions of dollars the way that Russians did.
Holy shit. So we're watching that. Didn't expect to swear so much on this one.
It's unfolding.
Yeah. So we're watching
it unfold before our eyes.
So we're literally seeing them prepare for sanctions as if they're about to do something so unbelievably awful that they're expecting this. Right. And
so, the game that America's playing, right?
Yeah. So, but can I go back a sec just to make sure I've understood the whole shebang here? So then, what you're saying is that China the US government have basically declared all of this, 75 companies you said now, just to be completely worthless, and that they cannot be used as equity or collateral, or it's just like, as far as America is concerned, that money has just evaporated, right?
Well, the executive order is going to basically make those companies untradeable.
Okay.
So while in theory they're still going to maintain their value, I'm sorry, I shouldn't even say that. While in theory they may maintain their value in the future, most likely in the short term, all of these banks and institutions are going to divest themselves of those stocks before that happens. But the problem is that that's not what happened. They didn't divest themselves. And that's why January and June of last year, there's a Financial Times article where Vanguard and BlackRock stated that they own hundreds of billions of dollars worth of this emerging markets ETF shit. So we know that they haven't sold off all of it, especially because BlackRock just began selling some of it off last month, and they only sold off $370 million worth. This means they still have billions and billions of dollars worth of this junk Chinese collateral in their stock market. And they're decent companies, probably to some extent. But because they're related to Chinese Communist Party and military and technology companies in China, that is a national security threat, according to the administration, just in the same way that Russian companies were and were sanctioned and were removed from the stock market. They're going to be untradeable, and so people's call options, people's put options are going to go completely worthless. A lot of futures contracts on those stocks, and then the shares themselves will most likely lose a lot of value either before, during, or after that time, especially if there's any sort of market crash.
Wow. Okay. So then what happened, you're saying, in January and June, and then you're predicting is going to happen again, is that these become worthless. Whatever institutions are holding them start to get margin called, and then they start dumping other positions. Maybe they're forced to close out some of their short positions. Maybe they're like buying call options, or like trying to inflate the price of whatever options contracts they have in order to, stay afloat. And basically, you're saying that this is just like the tinder at the base of the bomb, basically.
I absolutely believe so. Like, especially the thing is that right now, most oftentimes they're not actually hedging for the call options on AMC and GameStop, but because of these executive orders and the margin calls that are, in my opinion, undoubtedly going to go out to, for example, BlackRock and Vanguard from the DTC, they're going to have to recall shares of heavily shorted companies in order to meet margin requirements as well. So it's either recall shares or sell off assets, and they're going to want to recall their shares first. That means that hedge funds and market makers and broker dealers are going to have to come up with shares that they don't own, specifically market makers and hedge funds and broker dealers that are front running the trades, from dark pools and retail investors. They're going to have to come up with billions and billions of shares that they don't own. For example, BlackRock alone owns 40 million plus shares of AMC that are lent out to companies like Citadel and Virtue and many others out there on the markets as well. And when they start receiving these back, and when these actually start getting purchased in order to delta hedge for some of these calls, it causes, and they have to purchase them as well to return them to BlackRock or Vanguard. The price starts to go up, and then market makers and hedge funds, will delta hedge even further, because that puts more calls in the money, and which is basically a gamma ramp. And the gamma pushes up further with fear of missing out from retail investors and so on. And I don't want to get into the exact details there, but I would presume that that's exactly what we're going to fucking see. Massive margin calls and a short squeeze of a generation, of a lifetime, probably, because this is the kind of thing that only happens every few hundreds of years, basically.
So are our entire financial class completely stupid and illiterate, or are they absolutely 100% aware of what they're doing?
So, sorry, they're 100% aware. I thought you were talking about the majority of retail. Sadly, the majority of retail investors are unable to understand the financial policies and the financial markets to any extent.
Yeah, wow.
And it causes and basically there's too many bulls out there, and the banks and the Federal Reserve have perpetuated the notion that the market will always be going up and have eased for entirely too long, printed entirely too much money. And there's no other way out from here, in my opinion. Sorry if I'm, taking sort of a tangent here. But basically, the way that it's looking for all of these guys is that this is the only resort here, and they know exactly what's going on. They're purposely setting up military and federal employees' funds to be locked up from a period of May 26th through the first week of June to the tune of almost $900 billion, where they cannot withdraw those funds due to a system change that they're doing. So that means that almost $1 trillion of liquidity will be locked into the system for financial, basically for market makers to make sure that they've got some sort of bag holders and money in there to circulate around. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve and these other banks tend to, sell off. So there's a very good possibility that we see a market crash. And I hope to God I'm wrong and that this video ages very poorly, but there's a very good possibility that we see a market crash here in the next 3 weeks or so, with the fact that the TSP accounts will be unavailable and inaccessible for 2 weeks, as well as in the United Kingdom on June 2nd and 3rd are holidays, Queen's Jubilee. So those markets will also be closed. And it's also a Chinese holiday, so Hong Kong markets will be closed. So all those investors will have their liquidity and their funds locked into the stock market, no matter what's happening in American markets.
Yeah, well, God save the Queen. 4-day weekend. Try not to get patriotic about that, man.
Basically, I think they know exactly what's going on. And I think that they're setting it up to possibly happen within this time frame to make sure that they've got millions of bag holders and trillions of dollars in liquidity locked into the markets as it happens.
So,
hope I'm wrong.
I'm confused as to how the money can be locked up if it's a holiday. Surely the market can't crash when it's not open.
Well, the UK and the London markets and stuff might be closed, but here in America, those banks, for example, like here in America, when our stock market's open, that money will still be in the market makers and hedge funds and banks' possession. That means that they won't have to worry about, those people withdrawing their funds and financial runs from millions and millions. Sorry, I should just say billions of people in Europe and China at the same time. And then America as well, because the TSP accounts are United States federal employees, postal workers, and military personnel. So military, for example, if they're invested in AMC and GameStop indirectly through one of their funds that they're in, through it's basically like a 401k or an IRA that's sponsored through the BlackRock, run by BlackRock. They're one of the largest asset managers of the thrift savings plan. And
quite convenient.
Yes. And, sorry about that.
Sorry, also, BlackRock
stated about hey, come on, chill. BlackRock stated last week that they were considering putting the thrift savings plan in Chinese markets. So they were considering investing the thrift savings plan as of last week in Chinese stocks.
Right.
It was on Fox News.
That seems completely
it was on Fox News.
Fucking bonkers.
Why do you think they're doing it? I would suppose because they have a good idea of this June 3rd executive order, because BlackRock and Vanguard told us on the Financial Times verbatim and quote that, they were, going to comply with any sort of executive order and continue to comply. That's what they told us last year when it was happening. And I'm sure they'll tell us the exact same thing this year as it's happening, as millions of people are losing their investments.
Looks like they've been trying to do this for ages. Or at least they've tried a couple times to
they've been planning it. It seems it's weird.
So, to what extent do you think this war is like a distraction from like the other financial chaos that's about to be unleashed? Like, is this do you think that the US government no, this is incredibly speculative, but do you think the US government are attempting to preempt the anger that's going to take place post crash by, driving us straight into war?
I'm not sure, but I will say that people didn't seem to care so much about paying a little bit more for gas if it meant helping people in Ukraine. Does that
Well,
make sense?
yeah, but I mean, I'm not really 100% sure that that's definitely the case. That may be the narrative, but I'm
That's
not
the
sure
narrative.
that that's really what's fucking going on. If you
Yeah.
like, I'm really not
Come
sure. Yeah, take your time there.
here.
Don't worry. No, that's all right, man. It's a dog. I was doing a podcast the other day,
He's a
and
little angry. Hey,
yeah, it's
you
all
give her a
right, don't
treat.
worry.
I don't know.
I had someone, I had a cat interrupt a podcast the other day. Just plopped himself right in front of me. I was like, thanks, Max. But no,
For example, like just to kind of touch on the subject that you just mentioned, I don't necessarily know if they're nipping it in the bud, for example, but I do know that we're sending billions and billions of taxpayer dollars to Ukraine, and we don't really know where it's going. Like who's getting that money and who it's helping. Meanwhile, Americans are getting the middle finger.
like how sustainable do you think that is, man? Because like the government in Britain are in the middle of doing the same shit. So like when we're recording today, it's Monday, so this will be out on Thursday. So hopefully, like the whole thing hasn't completely blown up by then. But today there was a photo came out, and I don't know if you've heard about, like, it's called Partygate because everything has to end in gate.
Oh yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
So today there was a new picture that came out of Boris Johnson at the party, like glass in hand, the table covered in fucking booze, and, and
Great.
but it just feels like there's utter disdain for like the people and the laws of the country they're meant to govern, and like the principles upon which a government is meant to be there is, like, to serve the people. It seems like that, and obviously there's always been that kind of sense from politicians that maybe they're a bit better than us, or they deserve to rule, or however you want to fucking look at it. But like it feels like the level of like disregard for any sort of like any semblance of caring about about the people, or any sort of just like idea that they might not just be out for themselves, and not only just for themselves, but to fuck us all at the same time. Like, is this getting crazy? It's not just me, right? It's getting more brazen.
It's definitely not just you. It's the issues that we're seeing are more clear day in and day out, and the distractions are definitely there. I think a lot of people should be seeing them on mainstream media. And all over the news. There's millions of people watching the Jenny Depp trial, and nobody's watching what's happening, in our markets, for example. They just see the price at the beginning of the day. They don't realize the market, was down at some point, 3 percentage points, and it ended up flat at the end of the day. They're not seeing the volatility in their investments and in the markets because they're just not paying attention. They're looking at all the wrong places, because unfortunately, BlackRock and major corporations own, major banks own the majority of our mainstream media. And it's a nasty narrative. We see a lot of craziness, but only the craziness that they choose for us to see. So we've got to be very selective on what we accept, from them, and think as to not only what, but why they're showing us what they're showing us, and what the reasoning behind it is. And in part, I think that's why, BlackRock was on Fox News a couple days ago, telling us, in the second or third week of May, to tell us that thrift savings plan was going to be possibly invested into Chinese stocks. That there's a lot happening there, and pieces of information are usually released slowly in order to be able to, not necessarily give people an idea, but after the fact, to be able to state that, the mainstream media was trying to look out for people. So it's a sticky situation with these guys, and we're in for fun times, my friend. in the very short term.
Yeah. I mean, could be boring. You could be sat in some cave in the 1700s, couldn't you?
That's true.
Or
That's
some
true.
farm in like bumfuck nowhere. Like, so is the game up? Is this because like I see two conflicting theories on like what's going on in the markets. I see people saying that this is like the yeah the, as you've said like them running out of anything to do. Is just like they've printed so much money and they continue to do so because like there is no other way out until it all collapses. And then I see people suggesting that the crash is intentional so that they can buy everything up at rock bottom prices. Like, do you give any credence to that theory?
See, right now the Fed and
I don't specifically even mean, sorry, the
assets.
government. I mean just like the financial elite. Again, I hate that term, but like, you know the kind of groups of people I mean.
Yeah, it makes sense. At some point here, the narrative must be controlled. They're not going to go down. Like, let's say the elite are not going to go down losing tons of money. They're going to find ways in order to put standard, regular retail investors' funds in these markets and keep their own money, plain and simple. Like these guys are not out to lose their funds. For example, like BlackRock keeps buying up homes at massively, massively inflated prices. And the Federal Reserve continues to quantitative ease, even though they said they were going to stop to the tune of $130 billion last month. So they know what's going on here. And at some point when these markets do crash, the Fed is going to have to bail out the banks and the prime brokers, and they know it. So they've got a quid pro quo going on. So in the meantime, they continue to rack up assets of all kinds, stocks, real estate, properties, land of all sorts, any sort of tangible assets, silver and gold, etc., at any cost. And they'll continue to do so because they know when the time comes to bail out all these short positions, not just on AMC and GameStop, but I'm talking about silver, gold, mortgage-backed securities, commercial mortgage-backed securities, credit default swaps, everything that's happening right now in the markets. There's going to be an absolute implosion to where all of these too big to fail entities, from Citadel and Virtue to prime brokers and broker dealers, are going to have to be bailed out in order to prevent the entire financial collapse. And that would destroy the status quo, which would mean that the government would lose a lot of their power without the stock market. Therefore, they cannot allow it to happen. So the stock market will likely crash. And I do believe that the Fed will intentionally set the timeline for all of these prime brokers and banks to let the bottom drop at a given point, in order to move on and move forward with the financial system as a bit of a reset. Because like we've said before, all shorts must cover, all shorts must close, all positions must be closed out eventually, and that means that a lot of these bad bets and derivatives, or these toxic derivatives, are finally going to come to light and show their face to the tunes of quadrillions of dollars. And it's going to shake the global economy, period. And the thing is, sadly, that because it is planned, not because they want it to happen, but because it must happen. So in my opinion, they're going to line it up to make sure that they leave retail investors as the bag holders and make sure that they maintain their power and status. So I kind of agree with both sides of the coin there. I think they're kind of both accurate.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some sort of big reset or large, significant reset or great reset. Maybe the great reset might not.
I wonder why they keep talking about it, right? The World Economic Forum just keeps going on and on about the Great Reset, and have been telling us about it for a decade or so now for a reason.
Do you remember Build Back Better?
Yeah,
Do you remember that
Beijing?
9 months ago? Build Back Better. You remember that? Like, where the fuck are the buildings? Like,
that didn't go well at all.
No, but legit, like, right. Okay, I hated the fucking slogan. I hated the fact that the term went from like crazy conspiracy theorist term to being banned on Facebook to being used by all the leaders of the fucking like G7. That phrase has been on a bonkers ride, right? But then, like, they were like, oh, we're going to make everything better. We're going to make this new world post-COVID. And it's like, where the fuck where's the investment, lads? Like where's
that in the world, right?
Yeah, like, and there's it's not like there's no one else remember the Build Back Better shit like 6 months ago, probably even less. You could probably find quotes or like people talking about it, and we just all accepted that it's all going to fall apart. Like, it's insane.
I think it's reflected in his in his poll numbers at this point. Like, he's got the lowest approval rating we've seen in many decades. It's sad. It's sad. It's a joke.
Most popular president ever, mate. I don't know what you mean. He got the most votes. Unless you ask Dinesh D'Souza, right? So I know you have to go here in a few, so I want to ask a fun question to end with. So have you seen any of the aliens are totally real hearings in Congress this week?
Yeah, isn't it also convenient timing that they bring that to the people right now?
What, like how deep are you going here? Are you saying, was it Operation Blue Beam? Isn't that it? Is it Blue Beam or Blue Book? What's the one where there's going to be a fake holographic alien invasion? Like
that, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into that one. I'll tell you that much. It seems like a very easy distraction. This whole the whole aliens at this very moment thing, and they've been talking about it or keeping it silent for so long. Why come out with it at this point? It's just another in my opinion, a point of fear, of capitulation, kind of keep people in check here, and that we need to be protected by our government, our military, from not only other countries but also alien invasions. So it's, in my opinion, just a further push on the United States military agenda.
Yeah, here, let me show you this.
Let's see.
The Project Bluebeam. So here it is, baby. Project Bluebeam, a conspiracy theorist about a supposed project whose purpose is to create an artificial second coming in order to control people. So yeah, I think it's the depends who you ask. So this is from 2008. This is way back in the day. But wow. Yeah, so the theory is that there's going to be either like a fake like alien invasion or a fake second coming or something along those lines in order to take over the world. Something like that.
Nothing surprises me anymore. I guess they just decided to go with the cerveza sickness and nuclear war with other countries to keep everybody in fear. But I don't know, man. The aliens right now just seems to be very awkward timing. For no reason, now we're talking about aliens. Not you and I, Josh, but I mean, the Congress, and whatnot. Like, there's nothing better to be discussing right now.
Yeah. Well, you never know. Maybe there's something. No, but I think you're probably really not far off in terms of like the fuck is going on. It's a weird world that we live in right now, and for some reason my camera's not showing on your side now. Well, that went well, but
still good.
You can still hear me, so it's fine. It's still recording, so don't worry. But anyway, yeah, on that very crazy note that we decided to end on, like showing the depths of my getting high and watching conspiracy theories. I want to thank you for your time, man. Like, this was ridiculously educational and terrifying in equal measure.
Thanks, Josh. I hate to be so pessimistic, but a lot of people fail to realize that it's more a realistic look at the situation and less optimism or pessimism, and my optimism for heavily shorted meme stocks has come from the realities of the financial markets and the global economies and the shutdown of nations and destabilization of China and the United States and everything in between. So I appreciate you, Josh. I want to thank you for letting me be here. I hope that, people don't think that we're negative or we want, bad things to happen or people to lose their investments. It's quite the opposite. I think that's why both of us are talking about this, so that people can do their own homework and due diligence and kind of figure out for themselves what the best thing is to do financially for their future and their families and their coming generations. So thanks so much, Josh. I truly appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, man. Pleasure. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks everyone for listening. Check out the links in the description below for everything we talked about. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the podcast. If you want to leave us a comment, that would be awesome. Please like, share, subscribe, and if you're listening on Apple, please leave us a review. Until next time, thanks for listening.